live presentations. After attending many years of Distinguished Alumni Awards and learning about the stellar accomplishments and contributions of Pacific's alumni, former alumni board members Dave and Margaret Fredrickson noticed the theme. Behind each great awardee is another member of the Pacific family who motivated and inspired them to aim for excellence and contributed toward their future success. They conceived of setting aside a night to honor these Pacificans who changed my life. They provided the funding for these faculty, staff, and alumni to be honored at this event and featured in a permanent display case here in the Vereshchagin Alumni House. I think I speak for the entire board and say this annual event has become a board favorite. And I look forward to learning about tonight's honorees. Thank you, Dave and Margaret, for your generous donation. Our first awardee, Rick Fleming, is honoring Professor William Darling, his economics professor while at Pacific. Professor Darling's son, Don Darling, class of 1977, will accept the award on behalf of his late father. Rick, please come to the podium and tell us about the Pacifican who changed your life.
Well, good evening. I am delighted to be here, and first of all, thank you for this wonderful dinner. It is such an honor to meet with the Alumni Board tonight and my fellow alumni recipients in such an intimate setting. Now, as mentioned, I'd like to share with you the story of Dr. William Darling, a Pacifican who changed my life. Dr. Darling unfortunately passed in 2006, but we are very honored to have his son, Don Darling, with us, as well as his granddaughter, Karen. So thank you so much. Don is a 1977 graduate of Raymond College. He is also a veteran of the tech industry and has recently served as Senior Director of Quality and Reliability at Crossbar Inc., the developer of innovative data storage technology. So thank you, Don, for joining us tonight. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about Don's father, Dr. William Darling. Dr. Darling graduated with a BA in economics from UC Berkeley in 1949, and he received his master's degree and his doctorate in education from Pacific. And he joined the Department of Economics and Business in 1966 as professor of economics. He was an esteemed member of the faculty until his retirement in 1990, and he was particularly instrumental in the transformation of the business department into the School of Business and Public Administration, which later became the Everhart School of Business. During his final year at Pacific, Dr. Darling was awarded the Order of Pacific for his distinguished service to the university over many years. Now, I want to talk to you about how Dr. Darling changed my life. Let me take you back to 1967. I am a sophomore and the epitome of a liberal arts student. However, during Thanksgiving of that year, my father said to me, "Rick, it's time that you study something practical." Shorty wanted me to study business. Now, at that time, UOP only had a few business courses. However, it did have a strong economics curriculum. So I started taking economics classes. And I took to economics like peanut butter takes to jelly. Now, economics may be called a dismal science, but it's logical, it's about human behavior, and most importantly for my dad, it's about money. So studying economics was a win-win. However, as I finished my sophomore year, I started to hear about this dreaded Dr. Darling. When I asked my classmates for details, they told me that he had a stern classroom style and zero tolerance for poorly prepared students. So when the time came for me to take the classes with Dr. Darling, I decided to be extremely well prepared. And we got along just fine. I had several classes with Dr. Darling during my junior and senior years, and I was on solid ground with him. Now, let's fast forward to the second term of my senior year, and I'm going to be graduating soon, and I need a plan for life after Pacific. And I'm thinking I should become an economist. So I decided to get Dr. Darling's advice. Dr. Darling readily agreed to see me, but surprisingly, he pushed back hard on me becoming an economist. Primarily because my career choices, he told me, would be limited to banks, the Federal Reserve, or teaching. So he suggested I instead get a degree called an MBA, or Master's in Business Administration. And he added that Pacific did not have that degree at that time, but it was an established degree at particularly East Coast schools like Harvard and Dartmouth. Dr. Darling then recommended that I look at the Tuck School at Dartmouth because it was doing innovative work with the integration of computer science and computer modeling with its business curriculum. But my story doesn't end there because I also said to Dr. Darling, oh, by the way, I'm planning to get married to Diana, my bride of 54 years. And he smiled. And he smiled and said, I hope you've given this matter serious consideration. It's my experience that many young men give more thought to the cars that they buy than to the ladies they marry. And yet, cars can be traded in. So marriage with the right person is for life. So I thank Dr. Darling for his advice, and I later shared with my bride-to-be, Diana. Now, we were convinced that we were ready for marriage, despite the car analogy. But the idea of me going to the East Coast for graduate school was another matter. However, after due consideration, we decided to give it a try. So with Dr. Darling's support, I applied to Dartmouth, and I was quickly accepted. So in August of 1969, I packed my car and drove to the East Coast. Meanwhile, Diana entered her senior year at UOP. However, Diana and I also had a plan to get married during spring break of my first year in graduate school. So I flew back to Stockton. We were married in Morris Chapel, and then Diana completed her senior year at Dartmouth. So as you can see, Dr. Darling had a huge impact on my life. Without his counsel, I would never have gone to Dartmouth for graduate school. Without Dartmouth, I would not have been on the ground floor of the computer revolution in business. Also, I could very well be an economist today and having a long career in corporate finance. And lastly, Diana and I have never forgotten his wise counsel regarding marriage. Cars do come and go, but a great marriage is for life. So thank you, Dr. Darling, and thank you, John, for joining us tonight to accept this award on behalf of your father. Please come up.
I guess I've been introduced a few times, so I suppose I don't need to repeat. But my daughter Erin and I came to accept this wonderful award, and I'd like to thank Rick Fleming for honoring and selecting my father as the professor who changed his life. My dad loved teaching and mentoring and the learning process. And during his time here, as Rick had mentioned, he completed his doctorate at the University of Pacific and was involved in contributing to getting the business school accredited. So they had an MBA program that you weren't able to participate in here. He was involved with other universities, so he was familiar with business programs at other universities. He spent time at the University of Chicago, actually. It is a real honor to his legacy to be recognized would have been very meaningful and important to him to know that he had an impact on the student's life, and that's really the importance of going into teaching, because you don't go into it for the money. Anyway, so thanks again for letting me, the University Alumni Association, for setting up these awards, and I'm happy to accept this from my father. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick and Don. Next, I would like to invite Ralph Clark, who is honoring the late Professor of Philosophy, Gwen Brown. Professor George Randles from Pacific's Philosophy Department will accept the award on her behalf. Ralph, please tell us about the Pacifican who changed your life.
I don't know how I get to follow that incredible story, but thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity to recognize and honor a teacher, mentor, and a good friend of mine in Dr. Gwen Brown. She's really an amazing person. She was chairperson of the philosophy department. And although I formally got my BS in economics, I believe that philosophy has been core to my professional development. It's training I use every single day in my job as a CEO and leader of a technology company, and even as a father and a husband, with respect to arguing with folks and presenting hopefully logical arguments to the days. So without a doubt, Dr. Gwen Brown guided me. And one of the things that she taught me was a path of continuous learning and always questioning why. And I think if you're going to be a successful leader, you have to have a healthy skepticism about things and always ask the question why. And for me, being away from home and being the first to go to college in my family, having a home setting was really important to me. And the Philosophy Lodge was just that for me, just off of the Price dorm, where I spent a lot of time outside of class under Gwen's watchful eye. She always made me feel welcome, and she saw something in me that I didn't see in myself, always encouraging and always very challenging. And it really is her fault that I stand with you today, because it was her recommendation. I went to business school as well after 8 years working at IBM, and she wrote had to be one of the most authentic and powerful recommendations ever for me to slip through the cracks at Harvard Business School and be accepted. So I'm really pleased to honor Gwen. I miss her dearly. She's, like I said, a really good friend to me after graduating from school. We stayed in touch for a number of years. And so, George, if you want to come up and accept Gwen's award, I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much.
On the X's here, right?
I don't know if you want to give the professor a microphone or not, but so I'm happy to be here for Gwen Brown, and that's Gwen with 2 N's and Brown with an E. She would want to make sure everyone knew that. As when I was growing up, my father always told me that my things come in small packages. He was 5'6", but Gwen would look up at 5'6", and Gwen once told me that being short conferred one particular advantage, and that meant it was easier to kick people in the shins. Now I always assumed, right, and of course she meant it metaphorically. Now I always assumed that she meant she was going to kick, like a president, university president shins or a faculty colleague, but maybe she kicked some student shins as well. Ralph would have to let you know about that. So Ralph said some wonderful things. I mean, Gwen was a great professor here at the university. I do also want to mention that Gwen also not only cared deeply about her students and this university, but also about the Stockton community. And she served the Stockton community while as a faculty member, but also well into retirement. She was recognized by the Women's Leadership Group at Stockton, Suzanne. It was with the Susan B. Anthony Award for women's leadership in 1996, so just a couple of years after she retired. Gwen was active as one of the founders of FERC, the Family Resource and Referral Center here in Stockton, now just the Family Resource Center, and she served on its board of directors for many, many years. I think at least until just a few years ago, she was a member of that group. She also worked at Stockton Metro Ministry and helped make sure that people could pay their bills who had trouble doing that. So Gwen is greatly missed, not just at this university, but also the city of Stockton, and I'm very humbled to be able to accept this award on her behalf. So, thank you.
Thank you, Ralph and George. What a touching tribute. It is always an honor to hear from one of our faculty members. Next, I would like to invite Alan Cook, who is honoring former Food Services Director and honorary alumnus, Paul Fairbrook. Paul's wife will accept the award. Alan, please tell us about the Pacifican who changed your life.
Before I tell you about the Pacifican who changed my life, Gwen Brown also had a big influence on my life, and I was petrified of her as a student. But I'll tell you later. This evening I have chosen to honor Paul Fairbrook as the Pacifican who changed my life. Even though he is no longer with us, he continues to affect the way I act to make the Stockton community a better place for all residents. Mr. Fairbrook was Director of Auxiliary Services. One of his responsibilities included running the campus food service. The first time I can remember seeing Mr. Fairbrook in action was in my freshman year. In the fall of 1973, a group of us were having dinner when we heard this loud, booming voice announcing that we were lucky to be in the Grace Cobell dining room because today was the first day that the Frosty machine was being used. We all figured out that the man who was speaking was Mr. Fairbrook. We had heard that he had a loud voice and was much larger than life. That was certainly true on that day. He went on to say that he believed that we were the first campus in the country to have a Frosty machine in all of our dining rooms. See, you're lucky he's not around, Chris. Another occasion was freshman parent orientation. During my junior and senior years, I was a student host for the parents. On the day that Mr. Fairbrook spoke to the parents, it was fantastic. He brought brochures. He had a slideshow of special dining experiences on campus. He even said that he believed that Pacific's food service was #1 in the country. He shared his passion for providing high-quality food to students and ensuring that each meal served in the dining halls were the very best. Everything Paul did was over the top. He hosted campus-wide Valentine dinners, luau's, served prime rib on special occasions, just to mention a few. He was always dreaming up new ways to make dorm food taste better. And I must say that I did enjoy my year at Grace Cobell. When I moved into Alpha Kappa Lambda fraternity, I missed those special Mr. Fairbrook touches. Paul was also my Alpha Kappa Lambda brother. He was an honorary member. Because he supported us in our fundraising events and in our efforts to enlarge our main house on Fulton Avenue. This is when Paul became my mentor. I chaired the efforts to improve our living conditions and approached Paul to help put a plan into action. He made arrangements for me to meet with the university architect, Vice President Doctorman, and the members of the university's marketing team. He took this junior who mistakenly thought he knew how to do everything under his wings. He was gentle in his suggestions and forceful when I was not listening, or perhaps when I disagreed with him. I learned about handling successes and failures from this 2-year project. Paul showed me that I needed to always be thinking ahead and to be creative. I learned this by watching how he approached his job in food service, seeing that the little touches make a big difference, and always thanking those who assisted. Besides being very active on campus, Paul was very known in the Stockton community. St. Mary's Dining Room was one of the places that he helped. St. Mary's serves to the Stockton residents who are in-house or living in poverty. He designed the kitchen and helped with meal planning. Each year he would reach out to his friends and ask them to donate money to help him purchase bus passes for those who use the services at St. Mary's and the Women's Center. Paul was a man who stood up for the poor, for the people who needed hope, and he provided it. Following his example, I hope I have been able to help my community. One of the special things about a Pacific education is that it provides you with many opportunities to learn outside of the classroom. Paul was one of those opportunities that came my way. I often pray the Romero prayer, so named after St. Oscar Romero. Some of the words from this prayer capture the essence of Paul Fairbrook. We plant the seeds that one day will grow. We water the seeds already planted, knowing that they hold future promise. We lay foundations that will need further development. We provide yeast that produces effects far beyond our capabilities. We cannot do everything, and there is a sense of liberation in realizing that. This enables us to do something and to do it well. It may be incomplete, but it is a beginning, a step to do it well. It may be incomplete, but is a beginning, a step along the way, an opportunity for the Lord's grace to enter and to do the rest. We may never see the end results, but that is the difference between the master builder and the worker. We are workers, not master builders. May his memory be a blessing, and may each of us be a blessing to those less fortunate in the communities we live in. And here's to Paul.
We have to have our picture taken.
Yes, he was quite a strong force at Pacific while he was here. And he loved the students. But the one thing he had a notice up in his office that says, you can't feed kids with excuses. And he was very strong on the fact that food service was part of the students' education. And he would put on these dinners, Einstein dinners and all sorts of dinners, and he would love them. He once dressed up in a bishop's mitre and everything else to be part of. There's one thing is that the drama department was always asking him for, things for the plays and everything else, and he would give them to them. And then one day he wanted this bishop's mitre or whatever he was planning, and they said, oh, we don't rent out, we won't give out our costumes to wear. And then Paul said, well, Do you want dinner? Do you want costumes, implements for your next play? And somebody would say, oh yeah, you can have more. So it was very much part of our lives. Our children did not go into Pacific because Dad was such a strong character. At that point, teenagers didn't want anything to do with Dad and Pacific. So I'm grateful. Thank you, Tom, for the nice words you said about him. And we travel on. Paul only passed away in October. He was at age 100. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next, I would like to invite Natalie Compton, who is honoring her former advisor at the Pacific newspaper and 1991 Distinguished Public Service Award recipient, Dave Frederickson. Natalie, please tell us about the Pacifican who changed your life.
This is very surreal because I feel like I just went here and I didn't. It's been a while. I graduated in 2013, but when I got here in 2009, I was like many teenagers and I thought I knew what my life was going to be and what I was going to do. I was a Pacific legal scholar, which meant I was on a fast track to McGeorge Law, and I was going to make so much money, and it was going to be great. Then I got here and realized I did not know what lawyers do, and I was not going to be one. So I switched over to where I belong, which is the communications department. And that is where I signed up for Professor Frederickson's very exciting intro to public relations. I didn't know how to write a press release. I didn't know how to talk to adults. I was figuring things out, and it turned out he had the wildest career, and I'm going to get into that a little bit. This is what I knew about Professor Frederickson when I got there. First of all, he was my teacher. This is a man who I am just meeting, and it turned out that he had worked at the White House a lot. He had worked on 10 different presidential campaigns. He had served 6 presidents. He had been a TV producer. He had lived 1,000 lives, and now he was helping me. The other things that I learned about Professor Frederickson were that he came to UOP on a choir scholarship, which I think is very interesting. They needed a tenor. I knew that he had been married to Margaret for a lifetime, and I knew that he believed in me. Also, I've rehearsed this, and I didn't think I would feel emotional, but I am feeling emotional. Since I got here, he was just like, you gotta work for the newspaper. You need to write for the newspaper. Now you need to be an editor. Now you need to submit the paper for awards. It wasn't just get the paper out on time each week. It was do better, do more, be your best. And in return, they also did their best for me and the rest of the paper. They spent countless hours of their personal time, Margaret and Dave. It feels sacrilegious to call you Dave. I'm like, that's Professor Frederickson, calm down. They would just be there into the night, being with us, making sure what we were doing worked out, were the college students on the right track. They would drive us to journalism conferences and competitions, and we would sleep in the back of the car on the windy one. And Pacific wouldn't have been the same without him. While I was floundering, trying to figure out who I was going to be and what I was going to do and what I was going to study, Professor Frederickson believed in me the whole time and kept encouraging me to do more and be my best. He hired me to work at the Jacoby Center and run some public-facing events with him, and he provided letters of recommendations whenever I wanted to apply to something. And given his extensive history with all of his immense jobs, he was just talking about how he spent a month in Ireland with Reagan and all the shenanigans he got into along the way. He took time to care about me and believe in me, and Of course, when I got to my job at the Washington Post, he knew a ton of people that I worked with, from the actual top of the line, Fred Ryan, who was the publisher, to the guy who took my headshot, an award-winning photographer, Bill O'Leary. And Dave will just be on the phone and be like, oh, I know Bill, I know Fred. And of course he knows everybody. You've been in the business forever, and I, as a student at Pacific, didn't recognize the full weight of that until I left. Now, I have been gone from Pacific many years, but I still get the call from Professor Fredrickson every once in a while, and it'll always be out of the blue, and it'll always be something that I answer, and he'll still be encouraging me to do my best and do better. His latest refrain has been, when are you going to write a book? And I turn the question to you, because all the stories you have could fill tomes and lots of series, so I'm waiting for that book. And thank you so much for being with Pacific, and who changed my life.
It sort of makes me tired thinking about her career. Say nothing about mine. Well, this is an extraordinary evening, and I would take just a moment to do a little aside and tell you that Margaret and I committed ourselves to this particular cause because of our own experience at Pacific. In many ways, our lives began at Pacific. Now, we were not new to each other when we got to Pacific, because we're high school sweethearts. And I have to tell you, come May, we've been married 61? I like to say that I don't remember now what life was like before Margaret. My memory's shoddy. I can't remember that far back. But anyway, we decided that this was something that was close to our hearts because of the people that provided guidance to us. And it's been a remarkable journey. Now, Natalie is somebody that is a good example of students who come to Pacific thinking they know where they're going. And she came to me one day in her freshman semester, and she knocked on the door. She said, Professor Fredrickson, I've been told that you might be able to give me some guidance on how to structure a minor in communication. And I said, well, okay. And actually, that's how we really got started. She had already discovered that she probably wasn't going to be an award-winning lawyer. And so she was already casting about. And we talked about it that day because that's what I had done when I was here. It may surprise you to learn I have a degree in organic chemistry. And I actually practiced as an organic chemist for a number of years. But it was the minor in communication that shaped my career. And so we talked that day, and there was a whole new thing coming about called backpack journalism. I don't know how many of you have heard of it, but that is the mantra of today's journalist. It's got to be quick, it's got to be ready, and your go bag is always packed. And so we talked about that, and I suggested to her that she might want to learn to take pictures along the way, knew that she was serious because the day this building opened, she took the pictures with the new camera that her grandfather had given her. And she's still taking pictures. Now here's the thing I'm kind of amazed at. She went to 7 continents, filed 100 freelance stories before the Washington Post had a chance to reach out and recruit her. Now you think about that. I always figured that she thought she could do better because I was from Tulare and she was from Fresno. And she just knew that she could do better than anybody from Tulare. And she did. I haven't quite made that many stops yet. But there's one continent that I'm still trying to get to. But anyway, it's been a remarkable thing to watch. And I know that every one of you knows that that's what we're here for. That's why we gather. That's why we work so hard. And it's always a pleasure to welcome back a Pacificans for Life. Thank you, Natalie, very much.
Thank you very much, Natalie and Dave. I'm sure you all have been inspired tonight, as I have been, to reflect with gratitude on those who most impacted our own Pacific experience. May we all strive to become these sort of Pacificans who change lives with a student-centered focus and a bold spirit of innovation. We look forward to continuing the celebration with you tomorrow night, and as we induct all 5 of our new alumni awardees. Thank you for your attention and have a good night.